Good evening, I'm Klaudia Czerwińska and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. According to votes from over 90% of electoral districts, populist billionaire Andrej Babiš is making a comeback as a prime minister on pledges of raising wages and boosting domestic growth while cutting back on aid to Ukraine. This marks a new chapter for the Czech Republic and could spell significant changes for both the country and the European Union. We will bring you more on that in just a moment, but first let's take a look at the rest of our top headlines of today. One person dead, dozens injured in northern Ukraine after Russian strike hits passenger train. Dramatic protests unfold as Georgians vote in local elections marked by opposition boycott. We'll also head into the Montenegrin mountains to see if you can spot the European Union from the summit. Populist billionaire Andrej Babiš and his ANO party are poised to lead the Czech parliament, pledging to raise wages and reduce aid for Ukraine. The change from the current center-right cabinet boosts your populist anti-immigration camp and could harden opposition to the European Union climate goals. With more than 90% of the votes counted, Babiš, previously prime minister from 2017 to 2021, and his ANO party have taken the lead with around 35% of the vote. The ruling Spolu party wins 23%, Stan in third with 11%, and the Pirate Party and SPD both under 10%. Far left Stachilo did not make the 5% cutoff to be seated in parliament. Babiš's ANO will not have a majority in parliament and will need to form a coalition. For now, the only realistic options appear to be Tomio Okamura's far-right SPD or Motoriste Sobe. On Sunday, Andrej Babiš is expected to meet President Petr Pavel and will likely be tasked with forming a new government. The Czech Republic is waking up to a political shakeup. With nearly all votes counted, Andrej Babiš and his ANO movement have secured a commanding lead, but coalition talks could be turbulent. In a night of high drama, record turnout and a fractured opposition, the former prime minister did not hint at ruling with other parties, but did draw parallels with his ally, US President Donald Trump. TVP World's Alexandra Bulenda reports from Prague. Good evening, Alexandra. So the vote is over. What happens next?
Where confetti is out and the results are definitely in. So nearly all votes have been counted, just as you mentioned, and Andrej Babiš is claiming victory. Now, styling himself as a Central European strongman, even drawing comparisons with Donald Trump, he insists ANO should rule without coalition partners, and here's what he said about this.
I spoke with Trump 5 times. I was in Pentagon, I was in FBI, I was speaking to chief of CIA. And you know the result of this discussion? She told me, you are right, telling to President Trump, he don't hear to us. Believe me. So we are clearly oriented on the Czech Republic. We are here in Czech Republic.
So now yet on Ukraine, Babiš struck more a cautious tone. At a press conference, he argued that Europe must be focusing on EU priorities, meaning migration and negotiating the next 7-year budget. A budget, he said, now that already channels billions to Kyiv. And with Czech households now under pressure, he accused the government of piling up debt while still sending funds abroad. And I asked a political analyst here at ANO headquarters today what to make of it all.
Now we cannot be sure with who Babiš will form government, but if with anti-system parties like SPD or motorists, there is possible that he will end support for military support for Ukraine.
So now the problem is not the size of ANO's victory, but whether Babiš can actually form a government. And this is a question we pose to our TVP World expert.
And they actually are not very much politically aligned. Those motorists are very right-wing. They are for staying in NATO and in the European Union. As you know, SPD wants to leave the European Union. So it'll be really quite interesting to what extent Babiš, who can't form a a majority in parliament without them, how he's actually going to align them together.
Now, meanwhile, I have an information from literally 10 minutes ago that far-right leader Tomio Akamura, whose SPD party got lower turnout than expected. Some even say that ANO took away their votes. Said tonight he expects to meet ANO soon and will send a message to him in order to confirm potential coalition talks, although Babiš has not confirmed any talks altogether. Now, the turnout itself has been the highest since the 1990s, a sign how much is at stake. But for the first time since 1989, mind you, not a single left-wing party has crossed the threshold into parliament. So the communists and the successors has been wiped out. So White Babiš stresses that his ties to NATO and Donald Trump are real. Well, his real challenge starts now, forging a new government, and coalition talks may prove as dramatic as the campaign itself. So polling stations are closed, the ballots counted, and the future of the Czech Republic is about to be rewritten. Back to you.
Thank you so much. That was Alexandra Bulenda coming to us live from Prague. A civilian train was not hit once, but twice. Another day brought another ruthless attack by Russia on Ukrainian civilians as Russian forces targeted a train traveling from the Sumy region to Kyiv. And while Russia targets people, Ukraine hits refineries and infrastructure to put more pressure on Russia's wartime economy. Anastasia Yanchenko has more on the attack and the European response.
This is another devastating attack against Ukrainian civilians, carried out by a Russian strike on a train traveling from Shostka in the Sumy region to the capital. Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Kuleba says Russia hit the railway twice.
When the evacuation of people began, the enemy struck again, this time hitting the electric locomotive of the Kyiv-Shostka train. There are dozens injured among the passengers and Ukrainian railway staff.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on social media that Moscow again deliberately struck civilians.
The Russians could not have been unaware that they were striking civilians, and this is terror the world must not ignore. Every day Russia takes people's lives, and only strength can make them stop.
The attack also shocked European leaders, including European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who has repeatedly urged European and global leaders to ramp up pressure on Russia.
The EU stands with Ukraine as its people once again suffer at the hands of Russian barbarity. The shocking scenes emerging from Shostka railway station highlight Russia's reckless and continued willingness to target civilians.
And this is not the first time that Russia has struck Ukraine's trains and critical infrastructure. In June, Russia launched a missile strike on a civilian train from Odessa to Zaporizhia, wounding dozens. Experts say this is part of Russia's strategy.
In this way, the Russians aim to pressure Ukrainian society, seeking from Ukrainians the acceptance of Russia's demands for Ukraine's capitulation in this war. In other words, essentially forcing citizens into surrender through terror.
While Russia is deliberately targeting civilians, Ukrainian forces are responding by striking Russian fuel infrastructure, destroying oil refineries and gas pipelines. Numerous videos on Russian social media showed Ukrainian drones striking an oil refinery in Kryshi, in Russia's St. Petersburg region, roughly 1,000 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The attack was confirmed by the Ukrainian General Staff. The Kryshi refinery, one of Russia's largest with an annual capacity of 18.4 million tons, is key to Moscow's war effort. Amid falling output, experts say Russia is seeking gasoline imports from partner countries, including China.
Instead of making money from this, Russia will be forced to spend money on oil products. The less money they have, the faster their desire to continue the war will fade, and the stronger the incentive will become to somehow end it.
According to some estimates, up to 20% of Russia's refining capacity is offline, cutting over 1 million barrels a day of petrol and diesel. This has driven record fuel prices and shortages, with wholesale petrol prices up 55% since January. Some gas stations in Crimea, which Russia seized from Ukraine in 2014, have stopped selling fuel entirely. While Russian civilians wait in queues for gas, Ukrainians wait in hospitals for news of their loved ones.
Norway is stepping up its game in its pursuit to secure the eastern flank of the NATO alliance. Following the decision of the country's defense minister, Norwegian pilots deployed to Poland will be prepared to shoot down objects that violate Polish airspace. The comments come as Norway begins deployment of squadron of F-35 fighter jets to Poland. Piotr Miszczuk has more details on this latest development.
According to the Norwegian Deputy Defense Minister, his country's aircraft will be capable of intercepting objects violating Polish airspace. He added that the commander of NATO allied forces in Europe will decide on a case-by-case basis whether to intervene.
Our mission in Poland will primarily be to defend NATO territory against airborne threats. We will be ready to intercept objects violating Polish airspace.
Last month, Poland's airspace was violated with some 20 Russian drones, some of which were downed with the help of allied countries' aircraft. The latest deployment of Norwegian F-35 fighter jets to Poland is the second such mission this year. For TVP World, Randy Potts.
And polls are closed in local elections in Georgia, and the results are no surprise, with the ruling Georgian Dream taking 76.3% of the vote. The election was largely boycotted, though, and tens of thousands of people took to the streets. Now let's go to Don Arlith for the latest. Good evening, Don. So police have already used tear gas and water cannons in front of the presidential palace. You were there, so what can you tell us about the situation?
Yes. Well, right now we're in front of the parliament, and it's very, very peaceful. Now, earlier at Freedom Square, there were tens of thousands of people gathered there. There was a small rally that was held for about an hour. And from there, a large group of protesters went in front of the presidential palace. Now, when we went down there, we saw that there were certain people that were pulling the fence down off the presidential palace and trying to enter the premises, or at least the grounds of the presidential palace. And of course, the police were there trying to protect it. They brought in reinforcements, shooting water cannons, and then more police, and of course, tear gas, causing everybody to have to flee the area. So there was a bit of action. Now, it's unclear exactly who did this, whether it was the protesters or whether it was certain people who inspired this reaction. There were threats by the mayor earlier to arrest the leader of who organized this protest if any laws are broken, and they were saying that he is responsible for it. However, it's unclear what the situation is with that individual. I was able to come to the parliament after this all happened and talk to the fifth president of Georgia, Shlomo Georgishvili, who is the last democratically elected president, and many here in Georgia consider her the only legitimate president. So listen to what she told me.
This is a typical Russian scenario of provocation, because what is important here is that for 310 days, these people have been here standing, protesting peacefully to reach to the aim, which is peaceful, free elections. What I know is that this was instigated by the regime itself, because none of these people here would have gone by themselves in that direction.
Now, tensions have run very high here. However, they have calmed down. We know that there are groups of protesters still out in the streets. The police have probably shut this down at about 11 o'clock local time. And, well, we'll just have to see how these protests go. But talking with the president earlier, she said that they were trying to keep the momentum here with these protests to force some kind of change on the government. Now back to you.
Thank you so much, Don. That was Don Arlith reporting live from TVDC. Please do stay safe. The 19th edition of the Olympics of Classical Music, the Chopin competition, has begun in Warsaw. Over the course of 4 rounds and 3 weeks, ambitious under 30 pianists from across the world, but primarily from China, Japan and Poland, will compete for a career badge of honor. With the results expected at the end of October, one successful participant is set to be anointed for an international career. And now more on the EU accession front, this time in the Balkans. Montenegro wants to join the European Union by 2028, a somewhat lofty ambition the country's leadership says is guaranteed. But what challenges stand in the country's way of becoming a part of the bloc? Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins has an answer.
The Moracha River cuts through Montenegro's capital, Podgorica. Here, opinions about the EU flow.
Should Montenegro join the European Union? What do you think?
One day, maybe one day.
Yes, of course.
Why?
Because it's the state interest, economic and social and political.
I don't think so. Why? Why do you say that?
We have lots of problems.
We're great supporters because it will show that the EU enlargement project is alive, and we need that signal across the region.
Montenegro applied for EU membership in 2008 and is seen as the front-runner among 6 Western Balkan candidates. Among 40% of citizens believe it will join within 5 years, but delivering 35 chapters of reforms remains a challenge.
The quality of air, quality of waters, waste management, nature protection, horizontal law, noise, chemicals. So in all of these areas, there's a lot of structural change that Montenegro needs to do.
Environmental reforms are crucial to protect the country's natural beauty.
We will have more clean water, we will have the nature that is healthy, and we don't have problems with illegal dumping sites.
Independent media also faces pressure.
We have problems with a few criminal groups in Montenegro. They still operating here, and I really want from our governance to stop them finally, because we are all afraid of them, especially journalists who are dealing with issues with the criminal.
I'm in the Montenegrin mountain range, a stretch of earth comprised of towering peaks and deep valleys. Behind this mountain range is Serbia. Now, the Western Balkan country of Montenegro declared independence from Serbia 19 years ago, and this stretch of gravel and dirt represents Montenegro, where it's now at a junction between its past and the future, one in which could include European Union membership.
But getting closer to the bloc puts more distance between Podgorica and its former ally, Moscow. In 2022, Montenegro imposed sanctions against Russia for the country's full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Certainly that needs to be worked on further in Montenegro, but I want to underline that there are also several areas that Montenegro is dealing with very well. So, for example, common European and common foreign and security policy, just as one of example.
A European Parliament report praised Montenegro's sanctions policy against Russia, but warned of hybrid threats. Despite the optimism, a larger question remains whether Podgorica can clean up its environmental and press freedom laws by 2028. Angela Skujins, TVP World.
Saturday, October 4th, could mark a beginning of a new chapter in the political history of Japan. The land of the rising sun came one step closer to electing its first female prime minister. Sanae Takaichi, 66, has just been elected the ruling party leader. Our reporter Gabriela Fesnak is in Japan and has more.
In less than 2 weeks, Japan might be led by its first ever female prime minister. Sanae Takaichi, aged 66, has just been elected as the new leader of the Liberal Democratic Party, which has been in power for the majority of the last 80 years. Takaichi is a protege of the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and is known to be a lifelong admirer of Margaret Thatcher, as well as Japan's wartime history revisionist. She has vowed a tougher stance on immigration, and her ultra-conservative views are viewed as a potential major issue, for Japan's relationship with its closest neighbors.
I'm a bit concerned about our relations with countries in Asia, but I'm hopeful that she will be able to handle things well.
Among the candidates, I was interested the most in Mrs. Takaichi because she would be our first female leader. I really hope she does her best.
During her victory speech, Takaichi vowed to revitalize the party, which has suffered major losses during the last elections in July.
You will work like draft horses. I myself will throw away the very phrase work-life balance. I will work and work and work and work and keep on working.
Takaichi will face a major challenge almost immediately, hosting a potential summit with US President Donald Trump. For TVP World, from Tokyo, Gabriela Fesnak.
The cat is out of the bag. The parliamentary elections in the Czech Republic came to a close. Based on the results so far, Andrej Babiš and his ANO party are set to win the 2025 Czech parliamentary elections. What does this mean for the Czech Republic, the EU and Ukraine? What course will the country take under the new leadership? Filip Nera, Director of the Communications and Marketing at Globsec, joins me now to answer these and more. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining me on World News tonight.
Good evening.
So let's take a broader look. Why do you think ANO won and Babiš won alongside the election today?
Well, on one side, a lot of voters were dissatisfied with the current government, and Babiš promised in the election campaign almost everybody everything. So he promised higher wages, higher pensions, lowering down the retirement age, lower taxes, and so on and so forth. So he tackled the biggest problems of the current Czech society, which is high expenses, higher costs, and that worried a lot of people. And he promised them that he would make their life easier, better. A lot of voters believe him this, so that was the reason for this landslide victory of ANO party of Andrej Babiš.
So now one of the biggest questions that a lot of people are asking is who will ANO actually form a coalition with? What are your predictions?
Well, Andrej Babiš already said that he would like to form his own government, minority government, supported in parliament with other parties. In this regard, we can speak only about two. One is called Motorist. It's a, let's say, conservative right protest party of people who are close to former Czech President Václav Klaus. And this party is also the MEPs of the same parliamentary club in the European Parliament of this Patriots of Europe. So, and the Motorists, it's very probable. Common points and programs. The second party, which is possible to cooperate or support ANO party, is the far-right, anti-EU, anti-NATO party of Tomio Okamura. Tomio Okamura and Andrej Babiš doesn't have the best relationship, but SPD doesn't want so many votes. It will, so it's a little bit weakened and is ready to support ANO party. So that these three parties will cooperate, but it's still unclear whether the ANO government with of these two smaller parties in parliament, or whether they build the government blocks that should start this evening. And so the talk should start very early, and it's very probable that the next Czech government will be composed of these parties, either in a form of minority government supported by two small ones, or some kind of coalition government.
So obviously, there is some sort of a phenomenon surrounding Andrej Babiš based on the popularity that he gained during this parliamentary election. Some claim that he's somewhat of a Trumpian figure, in a way. What do you think that people remember about him that made them have him return to the parliament, may have him actually return to the government?
Well, Andrej Babiš and his party are very able to communicate on the social media, and he used rhetoric, a lot of promises to the voters, and so he's very able communicator, and that helps him to gain the voters. Unlike the current government parties, they were not able to explain to their voters why they had to make some very unpopular decisions like the pension reforms and so on. So for Andrej Babiš, it was easy to convince a lot of people that he would make their life easier, better, and that a lot of people likes to hear this and doesn't care much about where he gets the money for all the promises and so on. So Andrej Babiš is and his party are really good in communication in this election rhetoric, and that convince a lot of people to vote for him or for the party.
So what happens to the Czech armament program introduced by Fiala now, and most importantly, what happens to Ukraine?
Well, Andrej Babiš repeated many times that he wants to cancel the Czech ammunition initiative. That means the program in which the Czech government has been a coordinator of buying ammunition for Ukraine. So this ammunition will stop, at least in the way that the Czech government won't be the coordinator or the manager of this initiative. Andrej Babiš repeats that it should be task of NATO to do this. Which is, well, NATO is not ready to do this thing, because that would mean that it will come into this conflict in Ukraine. So we will see what future will have this initiative. But Czech government under his leadership, very probable leadership, won't be the leader of this initiative, and generally. Future Czech government won't be such a staunch supporter of Ukraine as the current government has been until now. Andrej Babiš repeats that he wants to have a peace in Ukraine, to settle the conflict in a diplomatical way, and not by sending weapons and ammunition to Ukrainians. So Czech Republic will, let's say, stop play, let's say, prominent role in a Ukrainian support. Then it's playing now.
Just a quick question before we go. Do you think that, considering Mr. Babiš's sentiments, he will try to create some sort of a coalition when it comes to European Union with Fico and Orban? Are we going to see some sort of a new bloc being created within the EU?
Well, it's very probable that they will cooperate closely, but they won't agree on all the topics. Yes, they are close to each other in many things. For example, they are not big fans of supporting Ukraine, when we say it so. That's true, but unlike to Fico or Orban, Andrej Babiš is not pro-Russian politician, or he's not ready to meet Vladimir Putin. I would say he's contrary. I'd say he is pro-European in the way that he wants to keep Czech Republic in EU, in NATO, he's a big supporter of Donald Trump, of this transatlantic relation. So in this way, he won't be such a pro-Russian element in the EU as Viktor Orban and Robert Fico sometimes are.
And we will have to put a full stop in there because our time on the program unfortunately came to an end. Thank you so much for joining me, Filip Nerad, Director of Communications and Marketing at Globsec. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for inviting me.
And so this would be all the latest news for now here on World News Tonight. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you back for more news and features here on TVP World.